here now to discuss is foreign policy analyst EJ Kimball. EJ, welcome to the show. It seems like a deal may nearly be done, but if so, this does open up a potential 60 days of technical talks between the U.S. and Iran. So what assurances would you be looking for upon signing, and what will still need to be ironed out?
Well, thanks for having me on. It's great to be with you. Look, one of the biggest challenges we have with making a deal with this regime is that they can't be trusted. They lie, they cheat, they try to change terms of deals even after they've been agreed to. We've seen this time and time again. So what I'm looking for when this deal, if this deal comes to fruition and comes out, is what are the requirements on the regime before the concessions are made from the United States. I think it's very important, and President Trump understands this with this regime, is that you can't give them an inch or they'll take a mile. And we've already seen that during the ceasefire. So I think it's very important that the conditions on Iran be met before the regime receives any concessions in return.
Yeah, and this president has remained very strong that his #1 priority is that Iran cannot have or possess the ability to build a nuclear weapon. And you just talked about this, given their historical lack of reliability. What would make this deal a sure thing? How might the conditions be different from the JCPOA?
Well, I think it's important to understand that this is not just a government that is in charge of Iran, but this is a jihadist revolutionary movement that essentially occupies this country of Iran, just like its proxies occupy Lebanon, occupy Gaza, occupy Iraq at the moment. So I think it's just very important that when we look at this nuclear program, we can't trust what they're going to say. We need to actually be putting in place very strict monitoring and verification methods to ensure that that the nuclear program is dismantled, because we've heard in the previous JCPOA the biggest problem fundamentally was that it had timelines. It had sunset clauses. So at this point, even if it had followed through to its conclusion, Iran would be on the verge of having a nuclear weapon, and there would be nothing that the United States could do. So to me, the biggest number right now is 952. That is the number of days left for President Trump's administration. And the Iranians know that, and they are looking at that number because they believe once he is out of office, they'll be able to continue this. So it is vitally important that this is not something that just lasts through this administration, but it is something that ends before this administration is over, so that a future president is not in a position where the Iranians can try to take advantage.
Yeah, this president obviously was the one to finally deal with it. And as an American, I am incredibly grateful that he is, because you're right, we never want to allow them any ability in the future to go down this path again. Now, another factor in this deal is the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Americans have been feeling the pressure when it comes to oil and gas costs. But earlier this week, the president revealed that more than 100 million barrels of oil are making their way through the strait and into the open market. So relief hopefully should be coming. Is Hormuz still a major bargaining chip for Iran, or does this indicate that the U.S. is finally gaining some footing when it comes to the waterway?
Well, I think that it is still a factor here, but it has certainly become less of a factor with the revelation from President Trump. Look, I've noticed gas prices have been going down, and I figured maybe there was some oil moving through the strait, but I didn't realize how much. And I think for the Iranians right now, they realize that they played their biggest card with the strait. And the reality is, the United States has the most lethal military in the world. It will kill, crush, destroy the enemy upon orders from the commander-in-chief. So the Iranians realize now that either the strait gets reopened by the U.S. military, or they try to have some type of a deal that they'll at least sell to their own people that they still have control of the strait. But most importantly is that this administration, and President Trump gets this, they will not allow the Iranian regime to hold the world global energy supply hostage. And that's why we've been diversifying and we've been increasing our production here in the United States. and some of our allies as well. The Iranians have played this card. It is not the factor that they thought it was going to be, precisely because the economic blockade that the U.S. countered with has completely shut down their economic lifeline. So I think what we're going to see here is that strait will open either through this deal or through the U.S. military.
Yeah, EJ, my dad texted me the other day that he even noticed the drop in gas prices. So hopefully we're heading in the right direction on that front. Iran now says that the ceasefire deal includes Lebanon as well, which would put an end to the IDF's operations against Hezbollah. So how do our leaders reconcile this tension while keeping that shared goal as the #1 priority?
Well, this has been a big challenge here because Lebanon, again, it's a failed state because Hezbollah, an Iranian proxy jihadist entity, has taken over control of that country. And while the U.S. has brought the Lebanese government, the Israeli government together to work on a peace plan, the reality is Lebanon and Israel don't have any issue. It's the fact that there's a terrorist organization operating there. And it's important for both Lebanon and Israel to rid that country of Hezbollah. Look, if this deal provides some sort of ceasefire again in Lebanon, Israel, of course, will always have the ability to carry out responses when they are attacked. Like any country, they have the right to defend themselves and their citizens. But more importantly here, the Lebanese government needs to be able to dismantle Hezbollah, and that's going to take support from both the United States and Israel. You know, the question on the Iranian side is, can you get Hezbollah to actually lay down their arms and stop firing on Israel? I'm not optimistic on it, but I believe if that's the cost temporarily to get this deal moving forward, I think the president's willing to push it with the understanding that Israel will respond the moment Hezbollah challenges the ceasefire.
All right. Well, before we let you go, I just want to get your overall assessment of this president and his administration's strategy on Iran from the very launch of Operation Epic Fury until now.
Well, look, President Trump is a transformational president. I mean, just think back 10 years ago at what the Republican Party was. He has completely transformed what the Republican Party stands for. And if you look at the Middle East from his first term with the Abraham Accords, really the whole change in the approach to Middle East diplomacy, he has upended 40 years or longer of failed diplomatic exercises here. So now you've got Abraham Accords, you've got Israel with peace with Arab neighbors. He recognized the greatest destabilizing threat to the region is Iran. And right now, there is the opportunity for President Trump's legacy to completely transform the region into something that becomes a prosperous region, not just for the people there, but for the entire world.
It's amazing stuff to watch happen, and we're so grateful he's the president right now. EJ, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.